A tragic story out of Mississippi. A pregnant mother of 3 was allegedly kidnapped and shot at while trying to escape. Police say she was then hit by a passing car and did not survive. The person accused of carrying out this attack, her ex-boyfriend, who at one point admitted on video that he's satanic.
I ain't no Christian, okay? I'm satanic.
I'll break down the latest information. For Law&Crime News, I'm Kennedi Walker. Glynis Antoinette Jackson was just 2 months away from turning 31. She was on the brink of new beginnings. She was a mom of 3 and had another baby on the way. But that future was tragically stolen from her in a heartbreaking series of events. This all happened on January 27th, 2025. According to the Madison County Sheriff's Department, that Monday morning, Glynis was at a Nissan manufacturing plant in Canton, Mississippi, and it would be there where her day took a horrifying turn. Her ex-boyfriend, 29-year-old Joshua Andrews, allegedly forced Glynis into his vehicle. The two of them fled the area and made their way towards Interstate 55. As they sped down the highway, the situation quickly escalated. At some point, police say Glynis managed to fall out of the moving vehicle, and as she tried to escape, she was allegedly shot at. Tragically, her attempt to flee ended in disaster. She was hit by a passing car and killed. Her body was found at the 161-mile marker in Holmes County, and police say she was shot multiple times. A gun was found at the scene, and Joshua Andrews turned himself in. Andrews has been charged with capital murder and possessing a firearm as a felon. He is also charged with first-degree murder for the death of an unborn child since Glynis was pregnant. In a statement, Holmes County Sheriff Willie March said Andrews has a history of violence. He said he was arrested a few years ago for aggravated assault. In a video shared online, Andrews admitted to being satanic.
I'm satanic, home. Like, my rules don't apply over here in my life like the rules you live by. I don't live by them codes.
And here to discuss this story with me is law enforcement expert Sonny Slaughter. Sonny, thank you so much for making the time today.
Thank you so much, Kennedy, for having me to discuss this heinous crime.
Yeah, let's just dive right in. When you first read about this case, what were your first thoughts?
So, I was really concerned that one, she was kidnapped from her place of employment at 7:30 in the morning. So that was early. So clearly that is a sign or an indicator to me that this individual, the defendant, was stalking or watching and lying in wait, which would go into play with the first-degree murder charge if that is a part of what they're doing in her case, because it also could be tied to the unborn child. So the lying in wait is, a critical part of this incident, and that he thought in the broad daylight at 7:30 in the morning at a plant where there are cameras, where there are other individuals going in, that he could pull this off, and he did pull this off. But hopefully that, because he did it in that way, people saw her, knew what was happening, and were able to report right away. But the manner in which he murdered her, and I am talking about the several gunshots prior to, that appear to have happened based on the information that I read in the car. It's just horrible. And she is leaving behind children, her family, her co-workers. This becomes a triggering incident for the workplace, for the family, for those who loved her. I looked at her social media. It's just an awful case of domestic violence that has gone into the danger zone once again in this country.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, police said this happened in the broad daylight, with the victim, Glynis, being kidnapped early in the morning. And when someone is abducted in the manner of, how she was in a public place like that say about just the suspect's mindset?
It really says that they are brazen, determined, and clearly, based on the shots in the car before she was able to jump out, he was not going to let her live anyway. He had a mindset and determination of ending her life in such a very viral and visceral way that no one was going to stop him. He was just clearly determined. And in broad daylight, where he could be seen, recognize the car, the whole incident, he didn't care. He had no remorse, and I'm saying remorse in advance of all of everything that we know right
Hmm.
now.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand. Well, can you break down the charges and explain, what they mean and how many years the suspect, Joshua Andrews, is potentially facing?
So one of the things that I did was kind of look up what they were doing. So there's a kidnapping charge that is on here, and then when you think about the other charges, the homicide may or may not be directly attributed to him, but it could be in connection because she was alive enough to get out of the car. However, we don't know, and I can't tell based on what was happening. When I say alive enough, whether she was pushed from the car or whether she tried to jump and then was killed. So the manner of death we know was homicide. However, and that they're charging him with that, and that she was pregnant. So he is looking at, I don't know if this will be a death penalty case, but I do know he is looking at substantive charges. He also has a gun charge. He was a current felon in possession of a firearm. I don't know the exact number of years for Mississippi. I did not look that up, but what I can say, he's looking at 25 years at least to life, no matter what, if he is convicted of these charges.
And do the amount of years go up because she was pregnant? Like, does that matter at all?
Yes, because then that would be a separate murder charge for the baby. Because that is an individual identified in law, codified in law and substance, that they could add additional charges. Now, what I did notice was that there was no mention in any of the stories that I looked at the why of this. And while that is not necessary for the criminal charges and for the trial, it is necessary to try to piece together for law enforcement to give that information to the prosecutor, to kind of get into the mindset, the question that you asked earlier. What was his mindset? So this seems like it was intentional. So intentional homicides are their charges are differently. So this will aggravate, put in aggravating factors around the charges. If it was a crime of passion, then that they can, kind of add on charges for that. But I'm saying 25 years to life because I don't know the specifics of everything, but the minimum I believe would be 25, and then stack on from there and just see what the other evidence determines, because the investigation is not over.
Right. And I'm sure we're going to learn more information, as the investigation unfolds, learning more about that suspect's mindset potentially. But, I want to know, when it comes to a victim being pregnant and being killed, does it matter, how far along she was? At this time, we don't know, if she was early on in the pregnancy, if she was about to pop. But does that matter when charging the suspect?
No, it does not matter, because the child, there is another person that has been deemed, the person was pregnant. So they're going to add that in as an individual, as another charge for the pregnancy. And that was something that I couldn't figure out in the language that I was seeing in the news, whether the homicide charge, the murder charge, was solely for her, or where will they be adding one for the child as well. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But yes, the death of the child will matter regardless of age, because apparently people knew, and she knew she was pregnant, or that's what is reported. So we'll have to see, how this plays out, but it will matter.
Now, we don't know for sure if Glynis was a victim of domestic abuse, but after this situation, I'm sure a bunch of people are going to be formulating their own opinions. But if she was, or if someone is in a similar situation watching this story right now, what should they do if they feel like they are in danger from a former partner?
One of the things that is really important in these days and times is for people to understand, to have self affirmation about their health, safety, and welfare. right? Do they feel outside of what everyone else's opinion? And domestic violence and abuse is not just physical, but it's verbal, it is psychological, it is isolation, it is financial. So when a person thinks about who they are and how they are in a relationship with someone, do they feel harmed in these ways, not just physical abuse? And if so, and if they have separated from an individual and they find that individual continue to call them, continue to stalk them, whether directly or indirectly, because stalking can happen through other means, and other means would be other people. Are they having family members or friends call and check on them and report on them? So that's another means of stalking. And if they feel this, then they should report this information to family and friends, but to local law enforcement as well. Obtain a restraining order if they feel that their lives are threatened, if their family is threatened, if the individual is showing up in their homes and places of work and places where they used to go to, and if they are surrounding themselves in ways that the person feels very uncomfortable. They should not engage, but they should notify law enforcement, try to obtain a protection order, but also recognize that a protection order is a piece of paper. So they have to put in all of the other layers around self-awareness, situational awareness. Where am I? Do people know where I am? Is their location turned on their phones? Have their watches, if they have smart watches, attached to their phone? So if the phone gets left, then the watch can still pick up and they can still be traced. Let other people know where they are. Let family members, friends, neighbors know. If my lights are on at this particular time or in a manner that you've never seen them on, please notify a family member or law enforcement that I might be in trouble. So they have to just really take care and be aware that the person that they were in a relationship with, they know their patterns and the other person knows their patterns. So do things that really try to provoke and invoke a sense of safety and concern, and let the other person know, I'm not going to be terrorized this way.
And this isn't a one size fits all situation, right? Everybody's situation is different. But are there any warning signs that people should look out for in relationships?
The very first time they hit you is enough. The very first time that they keep you from your friends and try to isolate you and tell you words like, I will kill myself or kill you if I can't have you, leave and listen and leave, or make a way out, or just be cautious. Sometimes we think that things that people do, oh, well, they really didn't mean it. They were having a bad day. You know who you are, the cues. And I say, because there's that inner voice that we all have that says, well, I'm not quite sure, but something doesn't feel right. And sometimes, most of the time, people say because they're vulnerable. They need someone, they feel like they need someone, they need the finances, they might share children. But if you feel something is not right in your relationship, listen to that, listen to what you feel, and then decide, is it worth the effort to keep going forward, or should you just try and go it alone? It's not an easy choice to make, but it is a realistic one. And particularly now when we see individuals in situations that are not just dangerous, but deadly.
Wow, that was some great advice. Thank you. Thank you so, so, so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's not clear if the driver of the vehicle that allegedly hit Jackson is facing any charges. For Law&Crime News, I'm Kennedi Walker.